The air in the ballet studio was thick with perfume, ambition, and prejudice. 8-year-old Amani stood quietly in the corner, her pink tights clinging to trembling legs. Her afro puffed proudly, though she tried to slick it down that morning with her mom's coconut oil. She clutched her ballet slippers, listening to the rustling whispers from a cluster of mothers near the mirror. She just doesn't fit the aesthetic, one said. She's distracting, another added. My daughter can't focus with her always front and center. Amani looked down. She had felt this before. At school, at the park. But here, in the place she loved most, it hurt different. Her mother, Camille, sat quietly in the corner of the waiting area, watching. She knew what was happening. She always knew, but she waited. She had faith in her daughter and something else. Something big. Mrs. Bradford, the mother of the reigning ballet favorite, Emma, marched into the director's office. She wasn't whispering anymore. I'm sorry, but if you want parents like me to keep supporting this school, she said sharply, you'll reconsider casting that girl in the showcase. The director blinked. Amani? She's fine for background. But lead? This is Swan Lake. It's classical. Elite. You know what I mean. The director said nothing. She simply nodded. But her eyes lingered on the family portrait on her desk. Her own daughter, biracial and brilliant, had danced once too, before the bullying drove her away. This wasn't just about ballet anymore. It was about righting a wrong. Rehearsals grew colder for Amani. Emma rolled her eyes openly, mimicking her moves. Some girls laughed when Amani missed a pirouette, but Amani kept dancing. Every night, she practiced until her toes bled. Camille stayed late in the studio, helping ice her daughter's feet, whispering Bible verses and old Nina Simone lyrics in her ear. You have something they can't take, baby, Camille would say. They don't even see it coming. Amani smiled through the pain, because inside she felt it. Something was coming. The theater buzzed with parents and donors. Lights glowed softly against red velvet curtains. Seats were filled with people expecting one thing. Emma as Odette, the Swan Queen. Backstage, Emma stretched arrogantly. Amani, in her hand-sewn costume, breathed deeply in the corner. Mrs. Bradford walked past with a sneer. Enjoy your few minutes, she said, before the real ballerina takes the spotlight. The music began, but something was different. The director took the mic. Tonight's performance has a change. Our lead will be danced by Amani Camille Brooks. Gasps, whispers, outrage. Mrs. Bradford stood, ready to leave, but then froze, because the lights came up and Amani began to dance. It wasn't just good, it was transcendent. Amani floated across the stage like water in motion. Every movement told a story, of pain, of power, of breaking free. The audience leaned in, stilled, breathless. Even the critics in the front row forgot their pens. Mrs. Bradford sat frozen, her eyes locked on the stage. Tears welled against her will. Her daughter Emma looked on, confused and small. The performance ended in silence. Then the applause came, a roar of it. People stood, cheered, cried. Amani bowed once, then twice. She turned backstage, where her mother stood, crying softly. Behind them, the director placed her hand on Camille's shoulder. She's got a future, she whispered, and no one's going to block it again. As the curtains closed, a tall woman in a dark blazer stepped from the wings. She approached Camille and Amani. My name is Dr. Juliet Hammond. I run a scholarship foundation for young, underserved dancers. I just watched something divine on that stage. She handed Camille a card. We want to sponsor her. Full ride. New York. Juilliard training. Everything. Camille stared, overwhelmed. Then she smiled. Mrs. Bradford, standing in the shadows, heard it all. And for the first time in years, she had nothing to say. Amani's story wasn't just about ballet. It was about dignity, about resilience, and how the smallest flame can outshine an entire room of doubt. Never underestimate the girl in the corner, because when she takes the spotlight, the world will remember her name. But just as the family celebrated the offer, Camille's phone buzzed. She looked down. and her face changed. Her sister's name, flashing over and over. "Camille," the voice said, breathless. "You need to come home. Now, it's about Dad." Amani clutched her mother's hand, and the lights dimmed again. The auditorium still echoed with applause as Amani and her mother, Camille, stepped into the cool night air. Camille's phone buzzed. Seeing her sister's name, she answered quickly. "Camille," her sister's voice trembled. "Dad's in the hospital. It's serious." Camille's heart sank. "We're on our way." They arrived at the hospital, the sterile smell and fluorescent lights adding to their anxiety. Camille's father, a retired jazz musician, lay unconscious. The doctor explained he had suffered a stroke. Amani held her grandfather's hand, whispering, "You promised to see me dance in New York." Days passed. Camille faced a dilemma: accept a prestigious ballet scholarship in New York or stay to support her father. Amani, sensing her mother's turmoil, spoke up. "Mom, Grandpa will want to dance. Let's go to New York." Camille nodded, tears in her eyes. "We'll make him proud." The city was a whirlwind of rehearsals and auditions. Amani faced skepticism from peers and instructors, some questioning her place in the elite program, but her determination never wavered. One day, during a particularly grueling rehearsal, a renowned choreographer watched silently. Afterward, he approached Amani. "Your passion is undeniable. I'd like you to lead our next showcase." The night of the showcase arrived. Amani stood backstage, nerves fluttering. As the curtain rose, she danced with grace and power, captivating the audience. In the front row, Camille sat beside her father, now recovered and beaming with pride. The performance received rave reviews. Amani's story spread, inspiring many. Yet, challenges remained. She received an anonymous note. "Stay in your place. Ballet isn't for you." Camille, reading the note, looked at her daughter. "We'll face this together." A week later, Amani received an invitation to audition for a world-renowned ballet company. As she prepared, another letter arrived. "Think twice before stepping on that stage." Amani stared at the letter, determination in her eyes. The sterile hum of hospital machines echoed through the dimly lit waiting room. Amani sat silently, her point shoes still in her bag, her bun slightly unraveling. Camille paced like a metronome, eyes fixed on the floor, but mind drifting back to her father's voice, his laughter, his jazz records, his firm belief in dreams no matter how distant. The ballet that night had felt like triumph. Now, it felt like smoke vanishing into the air. A nurse finally emerged. "He's awake," she whispered. They rushed in. Grandpa Elijah, frail but smiling, turned to Amani with tear-bright eyes. "You danced tonight," he said, voice weak but steady. Amani nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "You made me proud. But remember," he paused to catch his breath, "don't just dance for the people clapping. Dance for the ones watching with closed hearts." Camille clutched his hand, her own strength buckling under years of fighting battles for a child that should have never been fought. And with that, the next chapter began. The video of Amani's performance had gone viral. A clip, just 2 minutes long, showed her soaring across the stage like a flame in the dark, and ended with a standing ovation, gasps, and tears from an unsuspecting crowd. Someone had caught the confrontation earlier, too. Mrs. Larrington scoffed, the dismissive words about saving spots for the serious girls. Now it was everywhere. Social media boiled. They tried to bury her, not knowing she was a seed. She danced with the weight of centuries on her toes. Mrs. Larrington had gone quiet, but the school board? They weren't. They called an emergency meeting. Camille and Amani were invited, but not to perform, to defend. They walked into the boardroom like soldiers on sacred ground. Parents sat with arms crossed, faces taut. Mrs. Larrington, rigid in a beige suit, stood beside her attorney. "She's disruptive," the teacher began. She didn't follow the ensemble structure. She changed choreography. She led. Camille snapped, "And you punished her for it." The room murmured. One board member cleared her throat. "We've reviewed the footage, the performance, and the behavior of certain staff. We've also received dozens of letters from community members, alumni, and students." She turned to Amani. "You didn't just follow choreography. You transcended it. We believe you should not only stay in the program, but lead it." Mrs. Larrington's face went pale. "Effective immediately," the board member continued. "We'll be launching an equity initiative, and you, Mrs. Larrington, are being asked to step down." Later that week, a crisp letter arrived. The Alvin Ailey School, one of the most prestigious dance institutions in the country. The director had seen Amani's video. He'd watched it more than once, he said, and he saw in her what he called the ache of a story untold. They offered her a full scholarship. Camille wept when she read it aloud. Grandpa Elijah held Amani's hand and smiled. "Now you dance for every girl who never got the chance." Months later, Amani stood center stage at her first Ailey recital. She inhaled, and as the music swelled, she didn't think of the hate or the board meetings or even the ovation that would surely follow. She thought of the night she danced in the living room with her grandpa tapping beside her. She thought of her mother's voice saying, "They don't define you." She danced, and the audience, diverse, breathless, expectant, stood in stunned silence before erupting in thunderous applause. In the wings, a young black girl with frizzy braids watched in awe, gripping her own dance shoes. Amani had become the proof. But just as the curtain fell, Camille's phone buzzed. Her face went pale. "Camille," said the voice on the other end. "It's Mrs. Larrington. She's suing the school and you."